coming into a place of harmony and love and unity and so forth. These are things that the soul is what is guiding us toward.
Mm-hmm.
So when we see what's going on in the world and we see all this division and hatred and, othering of people, it's like that's ego driven. That is
Mm-hmm.
not soul driven at all. It doesn't matter how righteous you believe you are and making one different kind of person better or less than the other, or that in the past it's been, different, and they have, the oppressors of the past oppressing them today is not going to, it's only just going to flip the switch and you're going to be in the same mess that we were before. It's not, it doesn't work. It's lifting everybody up at the same time and forgiving the past,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because otherwise you're just going to be, the oppressed becomes the oppressor. It's like the victim becomes the victimizer. It will just spin around and around and around, and it will never heal. Welcome to the Let's Be Real podcast, genuine conversations for authentic living. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Lisa Allshafer, empowerment life coach and author.
I'm Sondra Pariser, health and wellness entrepreneur and truth seeker and truth speaker.
And today's episode is about finding emotional freedom through forgiveness.
And this is kind of the name of the game. So I swear, every time, Lisa, we talk about like what's so important for us to discuss, something really powerful comes down and in and through. And forgiveness is so layered, so layered, that this should be a really fun deep dive, because forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, forgiveness of self and others is the name of the game. So don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share if you feel so inclined. We appreciate it very, very much. And Lisa, take it away.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about self-forgiveness and then forgiveness of others, and then go more into the spiritual, higher soul perspective of what forgiveness is about as well, and then a few techniques to help you to really let go when it comes to forgiveness that we've talked about periodically on the podcast, and so we're going to end with that. So we'll start though with self-forgiveness. And a lot of times when we are thinking of forgiveness, we're thinking of other people, forgiving others.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to self-forgiveness, what happens is that we are usually harder on ourselves than most everybody else is. And when it comes to forgiveness, that's one place that this can happen, is we are not very compassionate with ourselves. So the healing comes through our own self-forgiveness because we're healing through self-compassion.
There's just so much to this that I'm going in many different directions. Keep talking, because I got a lot of prickles going on.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it is taking personal responsibility for the things that you've done in the past, but it's also either owning up the mistakes, whatever you've done, whatever you feel you've done. But ultimately, it is about forgiving yourself and removing that harsh judgment that you can have on yourself when you're in a judgment place. Important thing to remember about judgment is a form of resistance, and whatever you're judging, you're giving more power to. So that's kind of an overview of it all, is you don't want to keep judging yourself and stay in a state of judgment, because whatever you're judging, you're going to be manifesting more of what it is that you judge about yourself. So letting go of judgment is really important. And
Yeah, no. Okay. So this is where I was prickly and I couldn't quite put my finger on like what pulling me. And I was just having a conversation with Alan yesterday, and you and I were just talking about this. So I think that when you talk about judgment of self and forgiving self and self-compassion and what all of that means, I was trying to explain this to Alan, and maybe you could do this better because you're so good like that. But I always look to him as a reflection of me, because that is what happens. And going back to that book, Radical Forgiveness, that our beloved Rebecca gave us all those years ago, what radical forgiveness of self, right? Like we start there for a reason. How can you forgive others if you haven't forgiven yourself for whatever? And the easiest way to unpack it is what I call the law of mirrors. And when you're in a relationship, an intimate relationship, meaning a significant other, a spouse, a partner of some kind, not necessarily your kids, although there's a lot of mirroring there as
Mhm.
well. But really, in an intimate relationship, is going to pull out all of the weeds. Can you unpack that a little bit better for us?
Well, sure. I call it the law of reflection, law of mirrors, whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter as long as you understand it. And that is your outer world is reflecting what's going on in your inner world. Not everything, but the things that are prickly, the things that can, activate some of that inner emotion, if you will, and the people who are closest to you. We've said in the past that if you look at the sum of the five people that you spend the most time with, you'll find you're kind of an average in different ways of those five people because they're the strongest reflectors of or mirrors of who you are. That can be, even with forgiveness. If you have a lot of unforgiving people around you, it might be time to look and see how unforgiving you are of yourself. But ultimately, it's that law of reflection is how we grow, because in order for us to be able to really see what's going on inside, we need a mirror. We need that reflection to be able to see it, because those reflections become gauges. And when you know how to read your gauges correctly, just like your gas gauge on your car, you're going to know what's going on inside the car, and you're going to know what's going on inside yourself, because
Mhm.
it'll be key information. But it's also kind of challenging to do at times because we don't always like what we see in the mirror. We don't always like what we see in the reflections through others.
Yeah. And, this last Declaration of Universe, haha, Declaration of Universe, God bless Declaration of Universe, has been such an eye-opening, path for me for so many reasons. And it continues, and we're still in it. And
Mhm.
that's why I'm so grateful for this podcast, is because, we get to share, this is what's really happening, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm still going deeper. There really is a lot of, just trauma from my child. It's just trauma from my childhood, and how it is representing now. And it's hard, it's difficult to have memories, especially when you've had a childhood like mine, or you could even have the childhood almost doesn't matter. It's how you're processing the emotions that particular event, or that period of time, or whatever the case may be, how you personally interpret through your lens, right?
Yeah.
What the experience was. And so now, after all this really much layered, deeper work that I've been doing, that's why I'm so grateful to Alan, because if there's anything inside me, I get to use him. I mean, when I get emotional or something pops up for me, there's a reason it's there, and it's the only person that can figure it out is me.
Right.
It's really, really powerful. And forgiveness of self, you know, I I don't know about you. I don't really beat myself up anywhere like I did, before Declaration to Universe. I almost don't do it at all, because I am so damn curious. Like, where does this come from? Like, and so if people can just be more curious, when you feel something, right? Like, I can't forgive this person because, I mean, there's some people who do some heinous shit, and I'm what they do to children. Um, oh, the amount of, I mean, we've said this before, I'll say it again. As long as people are killing each other, the world is not okay. That's just wrong on every level. But
Yeah.
the forgiveness piece is not about what happened or what somebody did. It's really self-compassion. It's loving. It's something to do for you, so that we can get to a place of living a life more aligned in the frequency of love and abundance and gratitude and those types of energies. And it starts right here.
Yeah. Well, and in order to achieve those levels, those higher levels, is you have to release your guilt and your shame. Otherwise, it will keep you in the lower vibrational levels, the states of
Mhm.
being, the emotions, and so forth. And then you will be remanifesting things to feel guilty and shameful about. That's why, same with judgment. You'll do things to feel, self-judgmental about. And so releasing that releases you not from the responsibility, right? Not from the responsibility of it. That's why we want to make sure we're doing what we can to own it and take responsibility for whatever we've done, but then not hold on to all that guilt and shame around it. It's about releasing that, releasing the burden of that,
Mm-hmm.
and really raising your self-esteem, raising your value, and so forth, because that's the freeing process. This is about freeing ourselves, right? Emotionally freeing ourselves in a lot of ways, actually, more than emotionally, but emotionally is where it all begins when it comes to forgiveness. So we can move out of that deep, dark place that, we've been holding ourselves in. And what keeps us down there is holding on to our guilt and our shame. Yeah.
There's just so much to it. And again, here's my vulnerability, certainly to you, but
Hmm.
to anybody else listening. This has really been, the last few weeks have been a very humbling experience for me. And when we go through the search engine of our emotions,
Hmm.
right? Like, okay, why am I feeling this way? And really dealing with some feelings, quite honestly, I don't think I've ever experienced before. Um, just sorrow, sadness. Where's it coming from? Like, where is this coming from? Just these really deep emotions. And I think, especially in talking to people, because I talk to people all day long, um, there's a lot of struggle. There's a lot of there. We can use this time. Let me put it a little bit differently. This time that we are all growing through right now is, we could use it and just get swallowed up into the emotion and, oh, the shame and the guilt and the self judgment, self loathing. So, I mean, I've experienced all of that in the last few weeks, and really in the last, 10 days. Um, but I'm grateful to it, and I want to sit inside of it so that I can really unpack it, because these are times that we're living in where we finally can get clear, and it's here and here that it's here and here, right? Heart centered, soul centered, love centered. That's just, the way that it is. Self centered, soul centered, love centered is my personal goal. At the end of it all is to really emanate from that place. And I think just because of everything going on outside of us, it's really getting to a point where it's overwhelmingly confusing in general, right? Like, I can't even keep track of what's going on in the world, let alone my backyard in Texas, let alone in my old home in Las Vegas where you are. I can't keep up. I can't keep up. Um, and so I think we can use this time to, if you're experiencing what I've been experiencing, use this time to really pinpoint some of what, Lisa, you're so graciously guiding us through.
Yeah. Well, part of what we free ourselves from as well is we free ourselves from limiting beliefs about ourselves. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you're holding on to this lack of forgiveness for yourself, then what you're going to do is you're probably going to believe things about yourself that aren't true.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm a bad person, I'm not worthy, whatever it is, whatever those beliefs are, it's not for someone like me. You're cutting off these opportunities. You're probably creating self-sabotaging patterns through these different limiting beliefs. And so as you raise your vibration through forgiveness, you start to free yourself and start to see the truth about who you really are as well. And then
Yes.
that leads to more integration and wholeness, to, if you've been doing work of what you've been working on, as
Mm-hmm.
we've talked about many times, how long you and I have been doing our work, our transformational work.
Yeah.
And it's just an ongoing process. It will always just be there. It's a lifestyle. It's not an
I was just
event.
going to say, you,
Yeah.
you never stop until you die.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you and I for years have been saying this, like, there's no holy anointed one, no matter what. There's no, I mean, there's Dolores Cannon, right? Blue. I mean, there are people that you sit back and you go, God,
Yeah.
these people got it. No, ain't nobody got it, because we're we're still here. And
Yeah.
until we're here, we're going to be, it's also the balance of, you know, positive and negative and dark and light and shadow self. And I was thinking about this earlier today. Forgiveness came through. What a great topic for it's so important because everything kind of starts there. Um, but really, the shadow self. And I think that's a good topic for us at some point in time pretty quickly, because that feels to me what's happening.
And that's part of integration and wholeness, is as you heal your shadow side, which are just parts of you that are just held up in negative space, if you will, in a dark space. And they
Mhm.
get there through judgment. That's why judgment is so key to let go of, which unforgiveness is laced with judgment.
Mhm.
Because then what happens is, if you can think about, I can't think of what the character is, but I know it's probably a character in a movie. Think of these fragmented parts of yourself that are out there, that are held in judgment, that are in a kind of a dark place, if you will, that are unhealed parts of you. And when you go in to forgive yourself, what you're doing is you're retrieving these fragmented parts of you and integrating them into the whole of you, which is really more of the light of you. And that's why it's, feel more whole. You don't feel so fragmented, or I mean, obviously the biggest fragmentation is the split personality, right? Multiple
Oh
personality,
yeah, for sure.
right? Where there's this one over
Yeah.
here and this one over here. I don't hear much about that much anymore, but certainly I remember growing up, and Sally Field did a whole movie about that.
Yeah.
Multiple
Schizophrenia.
personality. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
I
anyhow,
remember that movie. I
okay.
remember that. Whoa, that's pulling something out of the way back machine.
Yeah, I know. I don't even remember the name of it, but I remember she was tied to a piano for a while. She was abused. So
Yeah.
think of that for a moment, abuse. So
Mm.
when someone's abused, it's so painful to be in the body that you just create a whole nother personality as a
Yep.
way to escape it in
Yep.
your mind, right? But even so, if you think about the shadow and the light, it's when we're in our shadow side, we show up differently. Say if somebody's drinking, right? And they get drunk and they start to show up like, ooh, they got a mean streak, didn't know that was there, or something like that. That's because they're now in their shadow side. And when we
Mm.
drink alcohol, it's much easier for that shadow side to come out,
Mhm.
and so forth. But don't want to go too far into that because that's a whole nother subject. But that's part of what forgiveness does. It removes the judgment, releases the judgment, right? And then you release the darkness and the shame and the guilt and all of that that has outcast these parts of you, so that you can reintegrate them into the whole of you. And then, of course, we all work better when we feel whole and
Yeah.
energetically we're whole, and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And even especially last week, how I showed up, and, God bless you for super raw. And here we go. It's a commitment I made to you, and it's a commitment we made to everybody that's listening. And so, and it is, of course, the Let's Be Real podcast. But
That helps.
last week, remember, somehow we brought up diets, and, you want an accountability partner when you go on a diet. And um, was it yesterday? I don't know. Everything's kind of blending together. I think it was yesterday or the day before. I was really trying to process, like, what does my body need now? What does it need right now? Because I'm ready to take some radical measures to really go into some of these emotions that are clearly inside me. I'm not judging it. I'm not afraid of it. It's there, and I want it to come up.
Yeah.
So part of my experience over the last year and a half now, wow, is Lisa, my wonderful, amazing trips to the ER. So I've had a couple kidney infections that went to the ER. And then, there's just, I had a little experience the other day. And so my body is clearly talking to me,
Mhm.
and I'm not hearing it, right? Well, now I am very much listening at right now. And I've been ready for a while to make some steps and to really start to address the body. So I was looking through a couple programs, like, do I want to do this? This is a detox. It's a radical 21-day detox, not the one that I've done so many times, which is the bone broth. I'm not doing that again. This is one through Dr. Miracle, who, it's a whole supplement. It's kind of a jump start to removing the heavy metals from my body.
Mhm.
And then I'm looking into also the carnivore, which has some amazing benefits, and you've incorporated some of that in your life
Mhm.
and in your
Yeah.
body. And so I sat down with Alan to present the case. Okay. So I was like, so here's what I come up with. I read all the paperwork. I've been through the whole, Dr. Miracle over here. And then, the carnivore and how that fits. And we just need to be eating clean food. Everybody needs to be eating clean food. We are so toxic for so many reasons: water, coffee, glyphosate. I've identified that I'm going to just tell everybody, I have really crazy levels of glyphosate, mercury. I have some BPA, not very bad, um, and some mold in my body. And it'll take me 10 months to 12 months to really remove the pollutants from my body, which I'm going to do. So what am I going to do to jumpstart it? Oh, and where did it come from? And I'll just tell everybody, California red wine, loaded with herbicides, pesticides, glyphosate, all of that. That had to have been, foods and water and whatever. But that's where I'm pretty sure that's where, so that's got to go.
Mhm.
And coffee. Coffee is a huge offender of mold, herbicides, and pesticides. So to which I drink like a pot a day. And I've been thinking
Pot
about,
a pot a day? Wow.
I'm going all in, throwing myself under the bus for everybody to hear. Maybe like 3/4 of a pot, because we make
Oh gosh, that
2
reminds
pots a day, and I got
that
a husband.
reminds me. Okay, so when you were still in Vegas, this was a long time ago. I quit coffee as well. But I drink 2 cups a day, so not quite a pot. But anyway, but I remember at your house one day, and you were just, I mean, this was many years ago. I don't know exactly how many, but quite a long time ago. And you were just like bing, 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 bing around your house. And you were like, I need more coffee. Oh, it was one of your parties. I need some coffee. I'm like, I don't think you need any more coffee. You're like so wired right now. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
Well, kind of talking about that too, because everybody can relate to this. If you drink coffee,
Yeah.
or if you know somebody who drinks coffee, you totally understand the coffee situation, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
Very
just,
addictive.
and I, through this process that I've been through of wanting to understand, to get my physical body healthy, I ran a toxicity report, and I'm looking at things now through the lens of, is this good for my physical body? Is this
Yeah.
going to lengthen my life? Just like what you did when you said, I'm
Mhm.
staring down the number 60, and I want to go into it feeling better than I did turning 50.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you say you've accomplished that?
Yes. By the way, that 60 starting to hit me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be 60. So when we get to, it's in May. I'll be turning 60 in May, and it's starting to like, especially since we were watching This Is Us, and they go through all the timelines and how, fast life goes by. And it's like, oh, 60, that's kind of a tough one, feeling a little tough. So maybe we'll do something about that closer to my 60s.
Oh, we'll have to do a whole podcast on
60.
something
Ooh.
around
Yeah.
around
If
age.
you're out there and you're turning 60, or you're around 60, or you're closing in on it, or you have just closed in on it, and it's just recently passed, we'd love to hear, what you would like to talk about as far as turning 60, getting into the 60s, because every decade is different. 40s is much different than turning
You
60.
know who turns 60 next month?
Hmm.
Our dear friend Terry.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, she might be somebody you could have a
Yeah.
little conversation about that with. But
Mhm,
yeah,
mhm,
in March 2020th, I think.
mhm.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, yeah, you're saying that. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
So, just very much like that was a choice that you made to just, and so here I am, I'm making the same choice. And anyway, I'm staring down this stupid 21-day detox, and it's so limiting and it's grueling. And, the first
Mhm,
8 days are basically, you might as well fast, but you're not
mhm,
fasting. So,
mhm.
um, anyway, so I'm presenting my case to my husband, and he's just been so wonderful with my emotional basket case-ism that I feel like I'm going through. And so he sat down, and we were on the gold couches, which is where we do our heavy conversations in my bedroom. Um, and they're oversized little couches, but two people can get their butts
Mhm.
in there. So anyway, he's like, I'll just come and sit next to you. So I'm presenting my case. I'm presenting my case. And he looks over at me and he's like, I'll do it with you.
Mm.
And I'm like, I'm going to just get tears in my eyes because I was like, I didn't know how in the world am I going to find like, because it's very restrictive. And he took it one step further and he's like, why don't we all do it as a family? Let's all just, I mean, obviously not to the level, and I don't expect Alan to do it to the level that I need to do it, but just the fact that, for 21 days, we're going to eat at home. We're going to do it together as a family. We're going to also like, it's not just, so this is my, so I'm telling everybody, I'm going to start my 21 days on Tuesday, mostly because I got to get the supplies from Dr. Miracle tomorrow.
Mhm.
And, but I'm ready. The house is ready. And I'm really excited because I'm going to do one step further, which is, your 30-day walk.
Mhm.
I'm going
Forgiveness
to,
walk. Mhm.
yep,
Mhm.
I'm going to incorporate bits of that
Yeah.
and just so that I get into the right frame of mind right out of bed.
Yeah.
Wake up in the
Well,
morning right out of
when
bed.
you're emotionally detoxing and you're physically detoxing. And here's the thing, when we physically detox, our emotions are coming whether we want them to or not, because a lot of that is the food or the wine or whatever it is that we're putting in our bodies is designed to suppress that stuff. So when we go on a detox, it starts to do the emotional detox as well. So for anybody, I know you know that, but
Yeah.
for anybody who doesn't know that out there, uh, that's important to understand, because as you're clearing this stuff, whatever was being used as a suppressant is now removed. So whatever has been suppressed is now going to make its way up. So this is really where you want to be able to move into the forgiveness mode if you've got stuff coming up like old anger. In fact, we'll have this to segue into forgiveness of others, because this is where a lot of people get hung up as well. And so if you have resentment and bitterness from, people in your past or people in your present, it's really important to use this time to release all of that, whether it's toward yourself or others, because that is something that is contaminating you when you hold on to old resentment and bitterness. It's a contaminant, it's a
Mm-hmm.
toxicity, it's an
Mm-hmm.
emotional one. And there's a great, I didn't bring it in here today, but um, holding on to resentment is like holding what is it? Well, I'll go to the other one because I can't remember the other one. Hanging on to resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Hmm.
There's one about a hot coal too, but I can't remember it off the top of my head.
No, but
Uh,
that
yeah.
that that is all so, you know, I just I can't even describe. I mean, like, got my tissues. Thank you, my friend Corey. Um, because it is so emotional, like, and I knew as I was presenting my case to my husband, um, I knew, and he knew, I'm not doing this to lose weight. This is going to be, again, a 10 to 12-month process of removing these heavy metals from my body.
Mhm.
There's no get rich quick, when it comes to, reclaiming your health.
Mhm.
Um, but it's not about the weight. It's not about the food. It's
Yeah.
everything to do with the emotions. So
Yeah.
yeah, I can hang in there for 21 days.
Yeah. Well, it's important for both of you to remember that the emotional detox is occurring too when
Yeah.
if you're doing it together.
He knows
Keep
that
that in
too.
mind. Yeah.
He knows
Yeah.
that too. And I
Yeah.
think he's ready for that also.
Yeah. Well, and
Obviously.
then, for anything, whether you guys are going through something or, someone else, whoever, out there, whoever have been holding on to, not forgiving, when you start to forgive for those people who are still in your life, or perhaps people who aren't in your life anymore that you would like to have back in your life, it gives you an opportunity to restore those relationships. So bring current relationships to a healthier state by, through your own forgiveness. It will start to clear the way so that the healing of the relationship can really happen.
Hmm.
And it's amazing sometimes when we feel we've been wronged, or we feel we've wronged others, but there's such power in "I'm sorry," and there's such power
Mm.
in "I forgive you."
Mhm.
And even though I remember I had a conversation, I won't say with who, but someone very close to me, and this was years ago, and she apologized to me for things that happened when we were much younger. And I said, I don't hold you into hold you anything about that. You don't need to say you're sorry. You don't need forgiveness.
Mm.
And but she, well, no, I do.
Mm.
And so I forgave her. And after that conversation, I talked with somebody else. And I mean, this is like, gosh, 20 years ago or something. But, and she said, hearing "I forgive you" for someone who has been carrying the weight of feeling
Mm.
they wronged them is important for people.
Mhm.
So, you know, I wasn't quite doing it in the best way, but I did the next time I talked to her, and I said, "I forgive you." And I gave her a solid "I forgive you." And so keep that in mind too if you're wanting to really restore a relationship. Both the "I'm sorry," depending on, how it's all played out and the context that it played out, but saying "I'm sorry" and saying "I forgive you" are really important
Mhm.
statements, heartfelt statements to make. Yeah.
Oh, I can second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. That very, very important. Very
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
So, okay, are we moving?
Moving
Should we go
forward,
into forgiveness of others?
well, we are already in forgiveness of others.
Oh, I don't even know where we were
That's
at.
okay. I know, that's okay. So
As long as
another
you do, that's great.
I that's my personality. Yours is perfectly where it needs to be.
Yeah, yeah, there
So
you
there we
go.
go. That's just how we work well together, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So another thing that happens with forgiveness is you transcend victimhood, because victimhood is so strong in our world today. And that, not forgiving, that's that whole process of "you have done something to me," and then we can live in this victim type oppressive state. We can oppress others, we can feel oppressed, and that's, you feel like a victim. And when you feel like a victim, you're going to create more situations where you see the world through the victim lens.
Hmm.
And let me clarify, there is a difference between having truly been victimized, whether you have been, attacked, or I won't go through all the litany of things that can happen, but where you have actually been victimized, and having a victim consciousness.
Oh my God. Yes, very
Okay.
important.
Very different things.
Very different.
And so I'm talking about victim consciousness. So it's moving out of that victimhood or victim consciousness that will just keep you oppressed. It will keep you down and attract to you other more victimizers, quite honestly. So that's not something you want to do. And there's many
Oh, I
psychological reasons why people do that. So, but ultimately you want to let that go so you don't stay in that state, and instead you become a victor.
Yes, and okay, this is the part. I'm like, where am I going to get to this one very powerful story? So, when you talk about true victims, right? Like being
Mhm.
victimized.
Yes.
For all of you who are not familiar with Kathy O'Brien, um, she she kind of was part of the creation of the MK Ultra mind control program through the CIA. Now she's probably 65, maybe 70-ish. Um, Horrific story. I mean, her dad sold her at 5 years old to the CIA. It's the craziest story. You can Google her and find her story, and it really is like, if you ever listen to her now, and I know she's hit the YouTube circuit, she's been through Rumble, and she's been on tons of shows because her story is so powerful that in her victimization, they traumatized her so horrifically that they were literally able to control her, which was really wild. And as she got older, so when she would slip into certain parts of her personality, she wouldn't remember these other parts. She would just remember this is her role to play at this time. And they would manipulate her that way.
Mhm.
So just Google Kathy O'Brien. You'll be like, oh my gosh, right? True story of, from that kind of mentality came a hero who came in and saved her. And he saved her and he saved her daughter. And through that, she forgave herself and went through everything that you and I talk about
Yeah.
on a much, much hardcore scale.
Right.
Because this lady actually went through all the shadows of all of what it is in the human experience. And now when you listen to her, you're like, wow, she's like nothing but love. Her frequency is like, how could you feel this way about these people that did this, and she'll say it's not about forgiveness of for them.
Hmm. For
It's
her.
more important for me to forgive. So now so I've been reading her story forever. So for Dr. Miracle, when Alan and I went to that retreat in September, I met this lady. I'm going to leave her name nameless,
Hmm.
but Dr. Miracle went around in a circle, and there were 14 participants. And asked her permission, of course. Can I use you as an example of? Can I use you as an example for forgiveness? And of course, she gave her permission because he's telling us the story. Just very, very. Here's just the tip of the iceberg to the story. And ultimately, her dad had done the unconscionable to her,
Right.
sold her, had her raped, watched her get raped, paid for it, made money off of it, just to the point where when she was 9 years old, she ran away, or I don't know exactly what happened. And 9 years old, nine
Mm.
years old. And then she clawed her way back from all of that and managed to create a functional life for her. But there was still one more thing hanging on. And it was she needed to forgive him, her father, for what he had done. And there was the rational person in the rational mind would be like, there's no way. Why? How could this happen? And Dr. Miracle was like, when you're ready, we'll go there. And when he was telling the story, he's like, I've never been so worried about a patient in my life,
Right.
because she got up and all the energy, right? The physical energy of like, there's no way I can forgive this man.
Hmm.
And I think it was something like 24 hours later, she called him and said, okay, I don't know what it looks like, but I trust you enough. So can we go there?
Hmm.
And sure enough, she forgave him in a session, much like the whole thing that happened on Miracle Monday for me.
Yeah.
She went through that process and it forever changed her.
Yeah.
And you could feel her. And so, of course, I got to hear the whole story, because, like, when you meet people like that, if that doesn't give you hope in what the human experience, what the human being can accomplish
Yeah.
from a deep perspective.
Yeah.
She had all my love and all my heart. So of course I asked her, I'm like, do you know who Kathy O'Brien is? And she's like, I've heard of her. I said, you got to read her books. Like, you are her. You're changing the world because you forgave him for the unforgivable. But it wasn't about him. It was about her. So I mailed her a bunch of Kathy O'Brien books, and I'm like, I'm going to send you a gift.
Well, and
It
that's why it's so important to do this with others, because we're the person who's unforgiving is the one who's paying the price, not the other
exactly.
person, not the other person.
Yeah.
They've got their own karma they're working with, and we'll get into karma here in a second. But yeah, but it releases us from all that heavy
Mm-hmm.
suffering, because
Yep.
we go into suffering when we're holding on to all of that stuff that comes with not forgiving, anger,
Yeah.
bitterness, hurt, all that pain. Yeah.
Yep. And, just speaking specifically to victimization and victim consciousness is the name of the game. It's, there's some really horrific things happening in our world, and,
Yeah.
it's important to keep
Yeah.
your
Keep
level of
that in mind.
awareness on that.
Yeah. And then if we look at it more from a spiritual perspective,
Mm-hmm.
then forgiveness comes in to be able to transcend that ego that we all have. It's sometimes considered the false self. That I won't go in a lot into the ego, but it's the part of us that really creates a lot of our self sabotage. It's where the judgment comes from. It's where a lot of negative things come from, but it's just part of the human condition that we all have an ego. So we have to recognize that certainly parts of our brain are connected into the ego, that survival mechanism, because it's really driven by
Mm,
fear. The ego
mhm,
is, it's driven,
mhm,
uses fear as a way to get more of our power and so forth. But ultimately, when we can look at what forgiveness is really about from that higher soul perspective, one of the things is, recognition of our interconnectedness. And there's a great scene in Phenomenon with John Travolta. An old
mhm.
movie, great movie though. I think I
We
might have mentioned it
love that
before.
movie.
Yes, we love
Great
that movie.
movie.
And he was actually accessing more parts of his brain throughout the movie. We didn't know that was happening, but that's what was happening. And he was saying, we're all connected. It's like the redwood forest. It looks like all individual trees from the eye level, but they're all connected by the roots underneath. And it's one organism. And so it's looking at
Mhm,
ourselves as we are all interconnected. We just can't see our roots. We just can't see the connections.
mhm,
So
mhm.
as we hold someone else in whatever in a negative place, that's why we feel the negativity of that, because we are connected. We're all connected. And then when we give love to others, that's why we get to benefit as well, because we feel that as well. We are in the vibration of love. So keeping that in mind when you're looking at that, is that this interconnectedness, it, whatever you're putting out there, it's coming back in here. So,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
vice versa. I mean, it goes both
You know,
ways. Mhm.
do you feel like now that the veil is being lifted from the human experience where we're at with our consciousness right now, and as we are collectively trying to shift and raise our consciousness, and how we do that is all the tips that you and I give every week that we're here, is what we're
Yeah.
really trying to help people really raise our frequency and our consciousness to that love base.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the more connected that we get in, like, big picture, and Lisa, you know this, but I'll
Mhm.
just share with everybody else out there. The reason I'm taking my health in this journey and what I'm doing with my family, with you, with everybody else out there, is I want to be an example, but I need to clean this physical vessel up so that I can connect more into the
Yes.
divine source of oneness.
Exactly. Yes.
That's the
Um,
reason.
well, it's just even food has different vibrations, right? So when we eat cleaner food, we are
Mhm.
operating, we're not, food isn't lowering our vibration. When we eat a
Right.
lot of processed food and all that kind of stuff, we're
Oh
actually
yeah.
lowering our vibration.
Yeah.
This is why even in eating meat and whatnot, you can, even though it's, I mean, the meat is dead, right? Obviously, but you
Oh,
can
it's
bless
you.
it.
Yeah.
The Native Americans would bless their kill, right? Because
Yeah.
it was all needed to survive, to live, but they would always bless it. And that would
Absolutely.
raise the vibration of the animal that gave its life for other life, right?
Mhm.
That's really
Mhm.
what a lot of this is. And so, um, even whether it's a plant or whether it's an animal
Yeah.
or whatnot, it's just recognizing the more alive food you have, um, whether it's um, clean food through being raised humanely, like if it's
Mhm.
meat,
Mhm.
poultry,
Organic.
whatever, organic, treated well, it's going
Mhm.
to have a different vibration going into your body
Mhm.
if it lived in a higher vibration throughout its whole life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, but if you have meat that has been where the animals are traumatized, we won't go deep into that, but when they've been
I know.
traumatized into all that and they've been treated inhumanely, that's all energy that also goes into your body.
Absolutely.
So it's being very conscientious around what you put into your body.
Mhm.
And even, I mean, you can bless the animal that, potentially went through the trauma, but if you can find, uh, you know, animals that were raised humanely, that's definitely the way to go. If you're
Yeah,
going
because we
to,
are all connected. We
yes,
really are. And so,
including the
and
animals in the park.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, whether, and honestly, you guys, I know it sounds really stupid, but
Mhm.
water. Like I
Water the
have
same.
been down this, in this little experience that I'm having right now. These are things I've known
Hmm.
for so long.
Yeah.
And yet I have not had the desire to make those changes. But and for the most part, I've lived a very clean life since I went through massage school in Hawaii in the year 2000 is
Right.
when I really started to go, oh gosh, I'm waking up to some of this stuff. But
Yeah.
like you're talking about with the beef, that's the biggest, selling point when I'm talking to my people about this is like the cleanest quality of beef you can get. The cows are born and they get to nurse their on their moms, and then they stay with them until they naturally wean away, and they are, out there on the pastures and
Mhm.
living the life, and
Yeah.
and even when it comes time to processing them, they're humanely euthanized. And
Mhm.
that's like it, aside from clean, 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 and clean,
Yeah.
no antibiotics, no hormones and all that, no mRNA. It's more for me like the gratefulness that you have towards the animal. But coming back to the ego, okay, because we'll slip back in. Um, do you feel like, because the ego is part of the mind, but the more we tap into the consciousness of source of all things, pineal gland, and do you feel like that kind of is more putting the ego in check if we're
Oh,
connected to
absolutely.
source?
Absolutely. First, you have to, again, ego is a different, a big topic to cover, but ultimately, ego is what we're um, not removing necessarily, but weakening the power of the ego over us. A lot of people, in fact, in my online course, Roadmap to Self Empowerment, I'm like, the ego is in the driver's seat. We don't want the ego in the driver's seat. We want your spirit in the driver's seat. We want, the light of you in the driver's seat. And so part of what removes the ego from the driver's seat is to release the ego attachments. A lot of things that we talk about attachment a lot, attachment to outcome, attachment to the material things, attachment to needing like things from other people. We're trying to fill up this bottomless pit that's really driven by the ego, because the ego can never be satisfied. So that's where you kind of know that no matter how much you get of something, whether it's approval or whether it's love or whether it's money or whether it's, material things, whatever it is, it's never enough, because that's where a lot of the ego lives. It's more, 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 more. And so by releasing that, you're also releasing the illusions that the ego can bring in. It's kind of like a magician, like
Mm-hmm.
fear. Remember, it uses fear. So FEAR is often an acronym used for false evidence appearing
Being
real.
real. Mm-hmm.
Fear. And that's what a lot of what the ego uses to get more power from us, right? From
Mm-hmm.
the light part of us. So we want to definitely release those ego attachments. And then again, that's also where the judgment comes from. So we want to be able to transcend judgment as a way also to really connect in with our fellow human beings, and really come from that place of compassion and understanding, so that and empathy. These are all things that are more soul driven aspects. And the more we do that, the more we're connected in and aligned with our soul,
Mm-hmm.
and as well as just aligning with universal principles. The law of reflection is a universal principle. The law of attraction is a universal principle. The law of vibration is a universal principle. There's all these universal principles, including the law of grace and so forth. But coming into a place of harmony and love and unity and so forth, these are things that the soul is what is guiding us toward.
Mm-hmm.
So when we see what's going on in the world, and we see all this division and hatred and, othering of people, it's like that's ego driven. That
Mm-hmm.
is not soul driven at all. It doesn't matter how righteous you believe you are, and making one different kind of person better or less than the other, or that in the past it's been, different, and they have, the oppressors of the past oppressing them today is not going to, it's only just going to flip the switch, and you're going to be in the same mess that we were before. It's not, it doesn't work. It's lifting everybody up at the same time and forgiving the past,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because otherwise you're just going to be, now the oppressed becomes the oppressor. It's like the victim becomes the victimizer. It will just spin around and around and around, and it will never heal. And that's why we're on such a dangerous track right now of, this, well, I won't go into all that because that gets really in a hairy place, but that's not where our soul is guiding us to go. So we need to really tap into what, to our own soul, and really know how to move the needle in the direction that's going to be freeing and not more oppressive.
Yeah,
Mhm.
what you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's so deep,
Yeah. Yeah.
deep.
And here's the thing too, especially when it comes to past, past transgressions or whatever, however you want to say it, past abuse, past whatever, because we hold it collectively and we hold it individually, and that is karma.
Yeah.
It is recognizing that karma plays its part. There is a fairness system that is far beyond our understanding, or
Mm-hmm.
at least far beyond our full comprehension. Let me put it that way, our full
Mm-hmm.
comprehension. And when we take it upon ourselves to make somebody pay, when we go
Oh.
into like becoming actually that victimizer or whatever, we're
Mm-hmm.
now bringing the karma upon ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it's really important to know there's a lot more going on here when it comes to forgiveness than meets the eye and what our feelings might be telling us.
Yeah.
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 And so we can free ourselves from karmic patterns as well. And I'm actually going to use that point to go into an exercise. And we've talked about it in the past.
Mm.
So we're going to go over a few exercises here. But one of them that I used was the 30-day forgiveness walk. And really the meat of that was the Ho'oponopono prayer, which is an ancient Hawaiian prayer. And it's really about personal responsibility, but it's connecting into, um, a very healing prayer that's so
Sacred
simple.
ancient prayer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's so simple.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, it's just four short, short sentences. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. That's it. And you repeat those. Now,
Mm-hmm.
how many times you repeat it and how long you repeat it, that's for you to decide. But I went on the 30-day forgiveness walk. It just came to me. I knew about the Ho'oponopono prayer already and had used it in the past, but there was someone that I was not releasing karmically, actually,
Mm-hmm.
from my life.
Karmically. Very
Yeah.
good point. Yes.
Yes, karmically,
Yeah.
and or karmatically, whichever way it's pronounced. And so I was already walking, and I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play the Ho'oponopono prayer because there's a really beautiful prayer which we'll link into the description that goes through it. It's set to really beautiful music. It's about 10 minutes, and I will put the person that I am forgiving in that space energetically as I go on my walk. And I did that, and I filmed it every day and made my little insights and so forth. By the time I got to day 10, so when I got to day 9, I was kind of like, this is kind of I want to go listen to something else. I was kind of getting a little bored with it, I guess, on day 9. And I said, but I'm holding true to my 30 days. That's what I committed to. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to listen to this Ho'opono prayer, and you never know what tomorrow brings.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, did tomorrow bring something, because that
Mm-hmm.
was the breakthrough day, was day 10. And when I hit day 10, it just came up so strongly that I had hmm, I had a soul contract with this person, and we've been around many lifetimes together, but ultimately I had a soul contract with this person. So by me not releasing him through forgiveness, I was not completing my side of the soul contract.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the one paying the price. I already knew this. I mean, I knew it intellectually, but this stuff can get pretty gnarly to let go of, no matter how much you intellectually know things and even how much
Mm-hmm.
work you've done. And this one was clinging on to me like, pretty hard for years. And I was kind of more at the tail end of it, but I wanted to fully release it. And so that was my day. And I tell you what, I felt the it lift off me like I've never felt it
Mm-hmm.
before. I completely took responsibility for my side of the soul contract, regardless of what has happened between us in the past. And I grew through that process tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just a very powerful exercise. So the Ho'oponopono prayer,
I'm just going to say about my Ho'oponopono prayer, because I have
yeah,
one too. I didn't do
yeah,
a 30-day exercise, but this is back in the beginning of, was it the end of December of 2013, beginning of 2014.
mhm,
And I was working with Rebecca,
mhm,
and Alan and I decided, it was August 19th of 2013, where It was Stacy's first birthday that Alan and I had decided that we would like to try to have another baby. Now, my body just gets pregnant very, very easily. So we decided, so we were in Africa. I wasn't on any birth control, and we were just kind of taking preventative measures. And so anyway, so that was August.
Mhm.
Um, didn't get pregnant in September, not October, not November, and not December. And okay, it was the beginning of January where I went to Rebecca and I had all of this sadness about some choices that I made when I was younger in my life regarding pregnancies.
Mhm.
And it was something that was eating me alive. Now that I had nothing but reverence for life, I understood what I had done. And oh God, it's gonna make me cry again. Anyway, it's all good. It's all over now. But so I had thought God was punishing me. And so Rebecca had said, okay, we're going to do the Ho'oponopono prayer. You're going to do it 40 you're going to say it 40 times a day. So you were specific to one person, right?
Mhm.
Karmic. For me, I was specific to one part of me I had to forgive regarding pregnancy. So 40 days. So I had to say it 40 times a day for 40 days. And I started that, let's say mid-January. And February 3rd, Alan and I were in Park City. I knew I was ovulating. Like my cycles are absolutely to a T, or they used to be. Now I'm in the phase. But anyway, so I knew it, and I knew it then. I knew it then. I'm like, I got pregnant. It was not even 20 days of 40 times a day using rosary beads, which I don't have anything to do with Catholicism, but a dear friend suggested that. And that was my Ho'oponopono prayer. And I got pregnant and had little baby Aurora.
There you
So
go.
like how powerful. You
Yeah.
released a karmic contract, and I brought a life into this world, forgiving myself.
Yeah.
Forgiving myself.
And the thing is you can create whatever practice with it you want. You can
Yes.
do 40 days and do the beads and 40 times, or
Yeah.
listen to a 10-minute 10 minutes on this great music, right? This prayer
Mhm.
meditation music, and just be out walking, but keeping that person in front and center. You don't have to do it with just one person. I mean, it's very a fluid technique.
Yeah.
So find your way.
Yes.
But that's just the point is it's very, again, it's an ancient sacred
Mhm.
prayer, and it's very powerful, very, very
Very
powerful.
powerful in
Yeah.
all the best ways.
In all
All
the
the
best
best
ways.
ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another way to really release through forgiveness is to write whoever it is. It could be yourself, but oftentimes it's going to be someone else, and write a forgiveness letter. And what you're doing in the forgiveness letter, this is not a letter to send. This is a letter for you to write. That's really where the process is healing. And so you're putting all of your emotional stuff out onto this letter, whether it's anger, resentment, pain, hurt, all these things. And you're just like dumping it out onto a letter, not a typewritten letter, but a handwritten letter.
Like your journal
And
from last week. Didn't you share with everybody that, or no?
no, I shared it with you. Yeah,
You
it's
shared
not
it with
here. It's
me.
not here.
Y-
I mentioned it briefly, but yeah, I
Yeah.
had a lot of
But you
anger, and
journaled it. Yeah,
yeah,
you
I
journaled
journaled
it.
it. Yeah, and I did plenty of forgiveness letters. Yeah, I did. And so, but it's to get it out of here and put it out onto, and to express it out
Mhm.
into that journal form, that letter form. And then when you feel complete, and this may take more than one round, it may take, a couple sittings of writing.
Mhm.
But when you'll know when you feel complete. You'll feel like, nope, it's all, I got it, everything I wanted to say. It's out, and it's out on paper now. And this can also be people that have already passed.
Mm.
It's good that we don't have to depend on people still being, in our life, or alive, in order to forgive them.
Absolutely.
We don't need their presence in order to forgive them, or actually be forgiven, because it's really our own lack of self-forgiveness. We can forgive ourselves, for what we've done with others who have passed, or that
Yes.
are no longer in our life as well. So remember, this is very, very open to, it's just really getting into that energy of forgiveness. And so once you're done writing the letter and you feel complete with it, then you can either tear it up and throw it out, you can burn it, you can just, what you're doing is you're releasing the energy so that
Mhm.
it moves out.
Yep.
Um, yeah. Now I kept my stuff. It wasn't that, because that wasn't a letter to anybody, but I like, because of what I do, I use it as resources to, keep with me because of being a coach. So I have burned some letters and so forth, but like when I was journaling about my anger, to me, that's a significant piece for me to see how far I've come. And
Mhm.
if I ever do show it, more on a public level, but
I've burned letters too.
yeah.
I've burned
Yeah.
letters too. But at this stage in the game, like just like how important it was for me to see where
Hmm.
you were at,
Hmm.
and then for you to look back to help me, which kind of leads into our last bullet point here.
Yeah.
But like it, I'm so grateful you kept that so I could see, like, and it was like, oh, my poor Lisa, boy, was she an angry
Yeah.
long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah. It was it was a destructive anger. In fact, part of what I was journaling is I want to destroy, but who I
Mm,
was destroying was myself.
yep.
And, but I let that go.
Yes, you
That's
did.
gone. That's such old energy now. Not that I never get
And that
angry,
was
but
a
not
while
like,
ago. That was
yeah. Oh,
that was a lo
that was 2005.
yeah, that
That
was a
was,
long time ago.
yeah.
Almost 20 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that was also more at the beginning of my transformational journey too. So think about that. I had all that, and I had it actually from when I was a little girl, except it built over time, because I even put in there 7 years old, my Annie doll.
Mhm.
My grandma made me a doll because she was really good at that. And I mean, I'm just, again, this very shy, passive little girl. And I'm in my room punching my Annie doll because I had all this anger and I didn't
Oh,
know
dear.
what it was about. Right. So thank you, Grandma, for the Annie doll. It never damaged the Annie doll.
Okay.
It was my way to be able to express anger. And I think, I mean, tomorrow we're going to be talking about in the parenting class about emotional intelligence and how to allow your children to express their anger without coming down on them, without making them wrong or judging them or whatever. They need a place to be able to express the negative feelings,
Mhm.
including the anger. And the more you allow them that space, the less they'll have to, you know, do all this kind of stuff when they're 40 or
Yeah.
whatever it was, however old it was.
30, 40, whenever.
41, I guess I was at that point. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, good. So then another one, which really Marianne Williamson talked about a lot. She's about love and forgiveness and so forth. And that's pray for the other person's happiness for 30
Mhm.
days. So, and I remember she was on the Oprah show and Oprah's like, whoa, girl, for Oprah Talks, and she said, that's not easy to do, to pray when you really have some charged energy around
Well,
somebody.
that's how I found my connection to God.
Yeah,
Praying for John to have everything that I ever wanted in life. Well,
yeah,
I can't even tell. I told you, like, I could not get through that prayer
yeah.
the first handful of days.
Hmm.
Yeah, so what a great example too, because
Yeah,
I mean, Marian Williamson is like the Course in Miracles.
yeah. Well, and Marianne said to Oprah, she goes, well, how easy it is to hang on to all this stuff.
Oh,
It's
so
like, it's
true.
not, it's hard. It's harder
Yeah.
to hang on to it than it is to let it go. I get the first letting go process. That's not easy,
Mhm.
but either is hanging on to it.
Right.
It's so much suffering when you hang on to it. And she used another great example in that same talk, I believe it was. And she said, when you are hanging on to all that stuff, it's, hopefully I get this right, it's like having a file drawer closed and to the universe. And the universe wants to put in good stuff into your little filing cabinet,
Mhm.
right, of your life.
Mhm.
But when you have it closed, it can't drop anything new in. It can't drop anything positive in because it's all closed up. So you want to release that stuff so that you can really allow what the universe has in store for you, or God has in store for you, that's more positive, which is like the reward when you forgive, when you let the stuff
Mhm.
go. The more you let go, the more you get, which is the paradigm, right? The paradigm shift. It's like,
Paradox, yeah.
yeah,
Well, and
paradox.
it's a
Yeah.
paradox too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. It is so true. So the prayer that I did was out of the 12 steps, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous,
Hmm.
um, that my stepmom had shared with me in a dark depression. I was 27 years old. when I went through this horrific relationship. And I still will refer to it as the best relationship I ever had, because it brought me to a point of such pain that I was actually able to find God. And I've been looking for God my whole life. I was like, what are these people telling? I want to have that experience. And it was really, so in this prayer, and I can't remember, I have to find this prayer. I've been asking her for it forever. What page is it on? But I literally had to read it out. And it was a prayer that I wanted him. And I mean, he horrifically abused me in every way and cheated on me with guys and girls. And like, I mean, wow, it was like, so I had to pray for him to have a family and to get married. And like, I mean, pray for his to have everything that I wanted to have in my own life.
Yeah.
Pretty intense. And here's where the magic happened. So you're supposed to say this prayer for 2 weeks. By the end of the 2 weeks, I felt that I meant it.
Yes. It takes a
That's
while. Yeah. Yeah.
that's when I was like, I did that. Like,
Yeah.
God is inside. I just asked.
Mhm.
And now I feel that, like, it was because I went through really, truly, like, bawling my eyes out just reciting and reading this paragraph. That's how simple it is, right? Just like Ho'oponopono. It's super simple,
Right.
but it's so powerful.
Yeah. And that's important to recognize too, that you're not just gonna, it's not gonna be like a switch. It just flips. It's a process.
It's a process.
And, if you don't worry if you don't feel genuine when you first start out,
That's right.
um,
Yeah.
because probability is you might not.
Right.
And so, but stay with it, and then really allow yourself to go deep with it, to move into as deep a place as you're able to in that moment, and really feel it to the best of your ability. But the consistency of it is important, and the length of it is important. So even if you did it for 30 days and you're still, I don't feel anything different, then maybe you need to do 60 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone's different. 30
Until you
days is a
have a
pretty good
chance,
amount of time. Yeah. But when you
until
start
you
to feel
feel
it,
different, and so in that, whatever it is for you and whatever people decide to do for them, we just want you to do something, because happiness is on the other side of the coin. Is to, you stick with it until, whether it's from day 9 to 10.
yeah.
Is it 9 to
Yeah.
10?
It was
Is
from
it
9 to 10. Yeah.
is
They
it
break.
day 21 for me? Is that when I'm going to hit my experience? I don't know, but I'm not committed for 21 days as detox, and then we'll see how the rest of the program works. But it's, again, I got 10 to 12 months before I can even test for these toxic chemicals again, because that's how long it takes to remove them. So it's a process.
It's a process. And it's important also to remember, how long have you been hanging on to this?
Oh, yes.
That's an
Yeah.
important variable as well. If you've been hanging on to this for years or a lifetime, especially if it's like something to do with parents or somebody from your
Yep.
childhood, those are the big ones. Those are the big ones, which means
Mhm.
those are going to be the ones that change your life the most when you start to move into forgiveness. But every person's experience is different.
Mhm.
There's one more little uh, story, and that is it was in the news. This guy came by. He was like from a gang or something, and he shot this girl, um, daughter of a mom, and they were together. She ended up in a wheelchair, and they forgave him. It was all like this whole thing, and they went into the prison and forgave him, and that changed his life. But it also freed them from holding on to this, because she was paralyzed or something. The girl was in a wheelchair now. So, I mean, her life was forever changed, and so was his. But the forgiveness for him turned his life around, because he received the forgiveness. Like, that's just wow. But it also freed the daughter and the mother from living a life of victimhood and anger and pain and suffering as well. So it's powerful, powerful stuff. Don't underestimate it. I mean, we've all heard it's powerful, but until you experience it, you will not realize just how powerful it actually is.
Yep, absolutely. And we will most likely be doing another podcast on forgiveness, because
Yeah.
of the importance of it all.
Yeah, for sure.
Any final
Okay,
words?
that's it. That's it.
I can't believe it. It's been a lot. We could have absolutely chopped this up into 2 sessions, but thank you guys for your time. Thanks for being with us. And again, like, subscribe, share if you are so inclined, and we will see you in a week.